What if the way you've been taught to think about money is the very thing keeping you trapped? What if the endless grind, the sleepless nights, and the paycheck-to-paycheck cycle weren't the price of success, but a trap? The story you're about to hear will shatter the illusion, exposing the hidden truth about wealth and how to finally take back control of your life. Because in the end, the real question isn't just about money, it's about time. And if you don't wake up now, you might spend your whole life trading it for nothing. Keep listening. The fluorescent hum of the office lights had never felt so suffocating. Daniel Carter sat at his desk, staring at the same expense reports he had been crunching for the past 3 hours. He was an accountant at a mid-sized firm in Chicago, a city he once loved but now felt caged in. The glare of the computer screen blurred as his mind drifted. How had he ended up here? At 38, he had a 6-figure salary, a luxury apartment downtown, and a sleek black Tesla parked in the garage below. From the outside, his life looked picture perfect. But inside, he was drowning. The weight of his $120,000 student loan balance and $800 a month car payment and the ever-growing stack of credit card bills suffocated him. He used to tell himself it was fine. Everyone had debt, but the truth gnawed at him. Was this what success felt like? A knock on his cubicle wall pulled him back to reality. It was Josh, his coworker, holding 2 cups of overpriced cafe lattes. "You okay, man? You've been staring at that screen for a while." Daniel forced a smile. "Yeah, just a lot on my plate." Josh chuckled. "Tell me about it. We're all just working to survive, right?" Survive. That word hit Daniel like a brick. Was that what he was doing? Working 60-hour weeks, barely seeing his friends, ignoring his health, just to keep up with the life he thought he was supposed to have? He nodded absently as Josh walked away, his words lingering in the stale office air. That night, Daniel rode the train home in silence. He scrolled mindlessly through Instagram, exotic vacations, luxury cars, gourmet dinners. A nagging voice in his head whispered, "They're probably drowning in debt too." When he reached his apartment, he flopped onto the couch, exhausted but restless. He grabbed the pile of unopened mail on the coffee table. Among the bills and credit card statements, one envelope stood out. A letter from his college friend Adam. Daniel hadn't spoken to Adam in years. Last he heard, Adam had quit his high-paying job and moved to a small town in Oregon. People thought he had lost his mind. But here was a letter, handwritten, in an era where no one wrote letters anymore. Curious. Daniel ripped it open. "Hey Dan, it's been a while. Hope you're doing well. I know this is random, but I came across a book that changed my life. It made me rethink everything. My job, my spending, my time. Thought of you while reading it. If you're feeling stuck, give it a shot." Attached was a yellowed paperback. The title made Daniel smirk. Your Money or Your Life? He almost tossed it aside, but something in Adam's words held him still. For the first time in years, Daniel felt a flicker of something he hadn't in a long time. Hope. Daniel turned the book over in his hands, the title taunting him. Your Money or Your Life? He let out a dry chuckle. What kind of dramatic title was that? It sounded like one of those self-help books his mother loved, the kind that promised to change your life in 10 easy steps. But Adam wasn't the type to fall for that kind of thing. In college, Adam was the rational one, the guy who ran spreadsheets for everything, from his weekly groceries to calculating how much time they wasted playing video games. If he thought this book was worth reading, maybe there was something to it. Daniel sighed, tossing the book onto his coffee table. His phone buzzed, a text from his sister, Rachel. Rachel. Hey, just checking in. How's work? Daniel stared at the message, his fingers hovering over the keyboard. How was work? He wanted to tell her the truth, that he felt like a hamster on a wheel, running but never getting anywhere. that he was tired of pretending he had everything under control when his savings account barely had 4 figures left, that the stress was so bad his doctor warned him last month about high blood pressure. Instead, he typed, "Daniel, same old, you?" Lying was easier. He put the phone down and leaned back, rubbing his temples. His eyes drifted back to the book. Screw it. He grabbed it and flipped it open to the first chapter. Your money or your life? The words stared back at him. The book opened with a simple but unsettling question. If someone pointed a gun at you and asked for your money or your life, you'd give them your money. So why do we constantly trade our lives for money, voluntarily? Daniel swallowed. The chapter continued, breaking down the concept in a way that hit uncomfortably close to home. Every hour of his life at work wasn't just about making money. It was about trading his limited time on Earth for a paycheck. He kept reading. The book asked another question. Do you have enough money? Daniel scoffed. Of course not. If he did, he wouldn't be sweating over bills every month. The next question. Are you spending enough time with family and friends? He frowned. The last time he had seen his parents was Thanksgiving 8 months ago. The last time he had a real conversation with Rachel, probably even longer. His stomach tightened. The questions kept coming. Do you have time to participate in things you believe are worthwhile? If you lost your job tomorrow, would you see it as an opportunity or a crisis? Are you at peace with your money? Daniel slammed the book shut. His pulse pounded. He wanted to brush it off, say it was just another self-help gimmick. But deep down, he knew why he was uncomfortable. Because the answers to all those questions were no. He wasn't free. He wasn't happy. He was working himself into the ground, spending money to feel successful, but it was never enough. And worst of all, he had no idea how to fix it. His eyes landed back on the book. Maybe this was the place to start. Hey, sorry to interrupt. If you're enjoying this story so far, consider hitting that subscribe button. Your support truly means the world to us. All right, let's continue. Daniel woke up the next morning with a strange sense of urgency. Normally, his weekday routine was autopilot. Alarm, shower, coffee, work. But today, the book sat on his nightstand, staring at him like an unfinished conversation. He grabbed it before he could second-guess himself and flipped to the next chapter. The book's first major lesson hit him right away. He needed to figure out how much money he had earned in his entire life. Daniel hesitated. That number had to be huge. He had been working full-time since he was 23. That was 15 years of paychecks. Where had it all gone? He opened his laptop and started digging. A quick check of his tax returns showed that in the past 5 years alone, he had earned over $750,000. His mind reeled. That's $750,000. And yet, his bank account barely had $4,000. He swallowed the lump in his throat and kept going. The book's next question hit even harder. What do you have to show for it? Daniel glanced around his apartment. A 70-inch OLED TV, a closet full of designer clothes he barely wore, a lease on a Tesla that cost more than some people's mortgages, a kitchen full of fancy gadgets, even though he mostly ordered takeout. Was this it? Was this what $750,000 had bought him? He thought about his childhood. His parents had always been frugal, saving diligently even on modest incomes. His dad used to say, "It's not about how much you make, it's about how much you keep." Daniel had ignored that advice, and now he had nothing to show for 15 years of work except stress, debt, and stuff. His stomach churned. The book introduced a concept that stopped Daniel cold: life energy. It argued that money wasn't just money, it was the time and effort you gave up to earn it. It asked, how much are you really trading for your paycheck? Daniel pulled out his phone calculator. His salary was $120,000 a year, which seemed great, until he broke it down. He worked 60 hours a week, not 40. He commuted 90 minutes a day. He checked emails on weekends. Adding everything up, he realized he was actually working 75 hours a week. He did the math. $120,000, 75 hours, 52 weeks, $30.76 per hour. That didn't seem too bad until he factored in all the hidden costs the book mentioned. Taxes took about 30% of his paycheck. Commuting cost him $400 a month in gas, parking, and train tickets. Stress-eating takeout cost him another $500 monthly. Expensive work clothes, dry cleaning added up too. When he recalculated, his real hourly wage was closer to $19 an hour. $19. Daniel slumped back in his chair. He had gone to college, worked his ass off, climbed the corporate ladder, and when it all evened out, he was making about the same as a barista. Daniel kept reading, desperate for answers. The book argued that most people had no idea how much money was enough. Instead, they kept chasing more, thinking it would bring happiness. It posed 3 life-changing questions. Did I receive fulfillment, satisfaction, and value in proportion to the life energy I spent? Is this spending in alignment with my values and life purpose? How might this spending change if I didn't have to work for money? Daniel stared at those questions for a long time. Did leasing a luxury car bring him real fulfillment? No. Did his expensive suits make him feel genuinely happy? No. Did endless takeout meals align with his values? No. Would he spend the same way if he didn't have to work? Absolutely not. For the first time in years, Daniel admitted something to himself. He had been using money to buy an illusion of success, and it had left him broke, exhausted, and miserable. He closed the book and sat in silence. For years, he had told himself that one day, when he finally earned enough, he would slow down, enjoy life, feel free. But now he saw the truth. There was no one day, there was only today. And if he didn't change something now, he would spend the next 30 years in the exact same cycle. He took a deep breath. It was time to do something about it. Daniel sat at his kitchen table, the book still open in front of him. His heart pounded. He had just come face to face with a truth he had spent years avoiding. He was working himself to death for a life he didn't even enjoy. But now what? The book laid out a step-by-step plan for breaking free, but it all seemed overwhelming. He needed to start small. He grabbed a notepad and wrote, "Things I can change right now. Track every dollar I spend for a month. Figure out how much I actually need to live. Cut out things that don't bring me real happiness. Create a plan to pay off debt." The book insisted that the first step to financial independence was awareness, knowing exactly where your money was going. Daniel downloaded a budgeting app and started plugging in numbers. He had never really looked at his spending this way before. Within minutes, he was horrified. $1 $200 month on dining out and takeout. $800 month on his Tesla lease. $400 month on random Amazon purchases. $250 month on clothes, most of which still had tags. $300 month on subscriptions, gym, streaming, premium apps. Daniel's stomach twisted. No wonder I'm broke. The realization stung, but for the first time in years, he felt in control. The next day at work, Daniel did something drastic. He logged into his Tesla app and put his car up for sale. His heart pounded as he clicked the confirmation button. That car was his status symbol. People noticed when he pulled up in it. But now, it just felt like a $800 month chain around his neck. Later that night, he went through his bank statements and canceled every subscription he didn't use. He downgraded his phone plan, deleted the Amazon app from his phone, and set a $100 month eating out limit. The book had said something that stuck with him. Every dollar you spend is a choice to trade your life energy. Spend wisely. Daniel had never thought about money this way before. A week later, Daniel sat down with his finances. Debt breakdown. Student loans, $120,000. Credit cards, $18,000. Car loan, almost gone thanks to selling his Tesla. He had always avoided looking at this number, but now he was ready to face it. He created a debt snowball plan from the book, paying off the smallest debts first, then rolling those payments into bigger ones. For the first time in years, he wasn't just making payments. He had a strategy. A month later, something strange happened. Daniel checked his bank account and saw an extra $2,000 sitting there. For the first time in years, he had more money than he spent. He stared at the screen, his chest tightening. This is what freedom feels like. And he was just getting started. Daniel felt a rare sense of control over his life. For the first time, he wasn't just working to survive. He had a plan. But life had a way of testing newfound resolve. 2 weeks into his new money habits, Daniel's friend Josh leaned over his cubicle. Hey man, we're hitting Steakhouse 55 tonight. You in? Daniel hesitated. Before, he wouldn't have thought twice. Another $100 meal on his credit card meant nothing. But now he knew exactly how much life energy that meal would cost him. He forced a smile. Actually, I'm cutting back on eating out. Josh frowned. Dude, you make 6 figures? You good? I'm just trying to be more mindful of my spending, Daniel said carefully. Josh shrugged. All right, man. Just don't go all Dave Ramsey on us. Daniel laughed, but inside, he felt the sting. Was I really that reckless before? That night, he ate a simple home-cooked meal, something he hadn't done in years. The next weekend, Daniel was out running errands when he saw a brand new gaming laptop on sale. You deserve this, a voice in his head whispered. You're saving money now. You can afford one splurge. His fingers hovered over his credit card. Old habits die hard. But then he stopped. Is this purchase in alignment with my values? The book's question echoed in his mind. Did he need it? No. Would it bring him lasting happiness? Also no. Instead of buying the laptop, he transferred $1,000 to his credit card balance. When he walked out of the store, he felt powerful. A month into his new journey, Daniel checked his savings account. For the first time in years, he had $5,000 saved. The book called this a freedom fund, money that wasn't just for bills, but for buying back his time. And for the first time, Daniel realized he wasn't trapped anymore. He had options. He had a way out. And that changed everything. Daniel's progress felt real. He was no longer living paycheck to paycheck. His savings were growing. His debt was shrinking. But with every step forward, life threw new challenges his way. It happened on a Monday morning. Daniel had just settled in with his coffee when his boss, Greg, called him into his office. Greg sighed, rubbing his temples. Daniel, we need to talk. The company's restructuring and there are going to be layoffs. Daniel's stomach dropped. We're keeping you, Greg continued, but we need you to take on more work. Same salary, but we'll need you to cover for the people we're losing. More work, no extra pay, no job security. The old Daniel would have panicked. He would have nodded, smiled, and accepted it. But the new Daniel, he had options. I appreciate the opportunity, Greg, Daniel said carefully, but I need to be honest. I can't take on double the workload without extra compensation. Greg raised an eyebrow. Daniel, you know times are tough. I do, but I also know my worth. The word shocked even Daniel. Greg exhaled. Look, I'll see what I can do. For the first time in his entire career, Daniel didn't feel like a desperate employee begging to keep his job. He felt in control. That evening, Daniel didn't check his emails. Instead, he called his sister Rachel. "Dan," she answered, surprised. "Everything okay?" "Yeah," he said, smiling. "I just realized I haven't seen you in forever. Want to grab coffee this weekend?" Rachel laughed. "Wow, my workaholic brother finally has time for me?" "Something like that," Daniel chuckled. For years, he had told himself he was too busy, but now he saw the truth. He hadn't been too busy. He had just been too lost. But now, he was finding his way back. Daniel's life was changing in ways he never expected. He had spent years believing that success meant working harder, making more, and buying more. But now, his definition of success was shifting, and with it, so was his life. One evening, while sorting through old files on his laptop, Daniel stumbled across something surprising, an old spreadsheet filled with personal finance tips. It was from years ago, back when he used to help friends budget their money. He had forgotten how much he loved breaking down numbers and making finance simple for people. And then a thought hit him. What if I turned this into a business? He wasn't looking for more work. He was looking for more freedom. But what if he could make money doing something he actually enjoyed? For the first time in a long time, Daniel felt excited. The next morning, Daniel woke up with a rush of fear. Who would pay me for financial advice? I'm still figuring out my own money. How can I teach others? The book's lessons echoed in his mind. Fear will always be there. Do it anyway. Daniel took a deep breath. He wouldn't quit his job yet, but he could start small. That night, he launched a simple website. Nothing fancy, just a place where he could share budgeting tips. He hit publish before he could talk himself out of it. It was a small step, but it was a step toward freedom. Daniel had always been the numbers guy. He could analyze financial statements, calculate taxes, and optimize budgets. But for the first time, he was applying that knowledge to something bigger than just his job. His new blog, Money on Your Terms, was simple. Just a place where he could share budgeting strategies, smart spending habits, and the lessons he had learned from your money or your life. But after posting his first article, How I Realized My Six-Figure Job Was Making Me Broke, something unexpected happened. Daniel checked his blog stats out of curiosity and nearly choked on his coffee. Over 5,000 views. He refreshed the page. The number kept climbing. His inbox had messages from people who saw themselves in his story. "Dude, this hit me hard. I'm making $150K, but feel like I'm drowning in debt. How did you start turning things around?" "I've been thinking about quitting my corporate job for years, but I'm terrified. How did you figure out how much you really needed to live?" "Your story made me pick up your money or your life. Life-changing stuff. Thank you." Daniel sat back, stunned. For the first time in his entire career, he was doing work that actually mattered to people. And it felt incredible. Despite the excitement, Daniel still had one foot in his old life. His corporate job wasn't as suffocating now. He had boundaries, savings, and options. But walking away from a steady, six-figure paycheck, that was terrifying. One night, he sat down with his finances. With his new spending habits, his debt almost gone, and his savings growing, he realized something shocking. He didn't need six figures to live well. In fact, if he kept things simple, he could afford to quit his job within a year. The realization hit him hard. He had been free this whole time. He just hadn't seen it. Daniel had spent 15 years believing that success meant earning more, spending more, and working harder. But now, success meant freedom. And for the first time in his life, he had a real plan to achieve it. Daniel sat down with his notebook and mapped out his next steps. Pay off the last of his credit card debt, 3 months. Build his freedom fund to $25,000, 6 months. grow his blog into a side income, ongoing, set a quit date for his corporate job 1 year from now. Seeing it written down made it real. He wasn't just dreaming anymore, he was executing. As the months passed, Daniel's finances grew stronger. His debt, gone. His savings, growing every month. His blog, starting to make real money. But every time he thought about handing in his resignation, a voice in his head whispered, "What if this is a mistake? What if you regret leaving your job? What if you fail?" Fear was loud. But then he remembered something from your money or your life. The best security isn't a job, it's knowing how to live well with less. He wasn't trapped anymore. He was ready. 1 year to the day after he started his journey, Daniel walked into Greg's office. "I'm giving my notice," he said, his voice steady. Greg blinked. "Wait, you're quitting? Where are you going?" Daniel smiled. "I'm not going anywhere. I'm choosing my life." For the first time ever, he was free. Walking out of his boss's office, Daniel felt a strange mix of emotions: excitement, fear, relief. For the first time in his adult life, he wasn't tied to a paycheck. No more 60-hour work weeks. No more stress-filled commutes. No more working just to survive. He had bought back his time, his freedom, his life. The first Monday after quitting, Daniel woke up naturally. No alarm clock, no rush. He brewed a cup of coffee and sat by his window, watching the city wake up. For years, his mornings had been a blur of stress and deadlines. Now, they were his own. He spent the day writing for his blog, which was now making enough to cover his basic expenses. Going for a midday run, something he hadn't done in years. Meeting Rachel for lunch. No rushed conversations, just real time together. This was his new life. Not built on stress and consumption, but on freedom and intention. Months later, Daniel was sitting in a small cafe, laptop open, working on a new post. "Your money or your life, how I chose freedom over a 6-figure job." As he wrote, he realized something powerful. It had never been about the money. It was about what money represented: control over his time, his choices, his happiness. He smiled, sipping his coffee. He had spent years trading his life for a paycheck. Now, he was finally living. You've just followed Daniel's journey, his struggles, his wake-up call, and his transformation. But this isn't just his story. It's yours too. Because right now you might be where Daniel was, working hard, chasing success, but feeling trapped. Maybe you're stuck in the cycle of earning, spending, and wondering where it all went. Maybe you feel like you don't own your time anymore. Maybe you're waiting for one day to finally start living. But here's the truth. You don't have to wait. Start tracking where your money goes. Ask yourself what you're truly working for. Redefine success, not as more money, but as more freedom. Because in the end, the real choice isn't just about dollars and cents. It's about your money or your life. So, what will you choose?